All right, Shalom, giving all praises, honor, and glory to our power Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shah, Bahashem Rachak, Kodash, double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the hopeful elect of the tabernacles of David, scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, whoever you may be, to you I say Shalom, Yahshua Shalom. All right, we winded down to the last few chapters of the book of Joshua, and we're now in Joshua chapter 22. We're going to read in NLT, because this is a very interesting chapter. All right, but it's also straightforward. So let's get into it. So it says the eastern tribes return home. Okay, the eastern tribes being the half tribe of Manasseh, East Manasseh, on obviously the east side of the Jordan, and you have also Gad and Reuben. All right, those three had, their portions of land on the east side of the Jordan. All right, and so, excuse me. And so this particular account here is more so dealing with Gad and Reuben. All right, which if you don't know, are the so-called Native Americans, right? Gad being, they mostly say Native American for Gad, but, then you have the Reubenites, all right? Those that you mostly hear about, starting down, in Florida, all right? So, yeah, so the so-called Native American tribes, all right, are the tribes of Gad and Reuben, all right? Because those are Israelites. And so the account is mostly dealing with them, all right? I don't think it ever mentions Manasseh, all right, within it. All right, but this is what they're talking about. On the east side of the Jordan, you have Gad, Reuben, and Manasseh. All right. So let me see here. And yeah, it says the eastern tribes return home. So Joshua 20:21. It says, then Joshua called together the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh. He told them, you have done as Moses, the servant of the Lord Yahweh, commanded you. All right. And if you don't know, the Lord in all capital letters, or God in all capital letters, is where the name of the Heavenly Father should be, all right? And his one true name, all right, is Yahweh in the Hebrew. Yah meaning he, Hawa means is or exists. What's that scripture? Deuteronomy 6:4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one, all right? So it says, he told them, you have done as Moses, the servant of Yahweh, commanded you, and you have obeyed every order I have given you. During all this time, you have not deserted the other tribes. You have been careful to obey the commands of Yahweh, your power, right up to the present day. And that's important for him to have, boost their spirits by saying that, because if you remember early on in the, further back, they were the first ones to receive a land of inheritance. All right, Reuben, Gad, and East Manasseh. All right, they were the first ones to receive an inheritance, and because that was on the east side of the Jordan. All right, but the thing is, with the men of war, all the men of war fought, all right, for everybody's lands, and afterwards, when all the lands were conquered, is when all the men of war were able to go back home, because it wouldn't be right for you to let's say because all the tribes had their certain skill set, obviously, because they all fought, right? Well, say maybe the Levites, all right. So maybe you were one of the strongest tribes, the best fighters, all right, and you got your inheritance early on, all right, but your assistance will be very needed because you were the best tribe at fighting or something like that. And I'm not saying there is one, all right, which Gad and Reuben are high up there, all right, on that level, but I'm just making a point here. So so your assistance is still needed, all right, because you're so skilled at battle. Not only this, it's not just you fighting for your inheritance of land. What about your brothers and sisters? You see? So all those men of war, they went out to fight, the mighty men of valor, all right? They went out to fight for all the lands, not just the ones allotted to themselves by way of their tribe, okay? And so for you to have been one of the first to receive, the lot of your inheritance, all right? And now, way down the line, because, this was, a series of battles, all right? Remember the one chapter we went into? Joshua slew the 31 kings, all right? That was Israel fighting a lot of wars against a lot of those kings of the Canaanites, all right? And all their different, tribal names, but I just, summarize as Canaanites. So now to finally be able to go back home, that was a big deal, okay? Because that was a long time, okay? It says, during all this time, you have not deserted the other tribes. You have been careful to obey the commands of Yahweh, your power, right up to the present day. And now Yahweh, your power, has given the other tribes rest as he promised them. So go back home to the land that Moses, the servant of the Lord Yahweh, gave you as your possession on the east side of the Jordan River. It says, but be very careful, because remember the one of the in one of the last couple chapters, I can't remember which one it was, we covered, where he sent out the spies, for the seven last tribes, so we can go and you know, deal, all right, in that manner, all right, and receive those lands. Okay. So now everything is pretty much being summed up. Like, all right, you got it all. So it says, but be very careful to obey all the commands and the instructions that Moses gave to you. Love the Lord Yahweh, your power, walk in all his ways, obey his commands, hold firmly to him, and serve him with all your heart and all your soul. And those were the most important words that he could have told him, all right? Because now we mentioned this before, all right, in previous sessions. You had the Levites, which I believe that was the last chapter we went into, or one of the chapters before. But the Levites who weren't given, in particular, the land itself, all right, but they were given suburb cities amongst other tribes, all right, because the Levites were the priests. So for certain things, you needed a priest, right? The other tribes couldn't do what the priests could do. Only the priests could do it. So you need the Levites everywhere to be able to, get in touch with, all right, on certain matters, okay. And so, you would have a Levite around for you to go and converse with on whatever matters or whatever case may be. Okay. And so the Levites were known to be, dealers in the law, right? So, you had a Levite to look to, all right, but it was important that he told them that to keep in mind, like, hey, you see what the Lord just did, we win all these battles, we got this land, so on and so forth. So make sure that you keep your mind, focused on the Lord. So it says, be very careful to obey all the commands and the instructions that Moses gave to you. Love Yahweh your power, walk in all his ways, obey his commands, hold firmly to him, hold firmly to him, and serve him with all your heart and all your soul. So Joshua blessed them and sent them away, and they went home. All right. It says Moses had given the land of Bashan, east of the Jordan River, to the half tribe of Manasseh. The other half of the tribe was given land west of the Jordan, as Joshua sent them away and blessed them. Okay, I'm reading one more time. Moses had given the land of Bashan, east of the Jordan River, to the half tribe Manasseh. That was in the furthest north portion, only east of the Jordan, right? Manasseh was at the top. The other half of the tribe was given the land west of the Jordan, all right, which we already covered that, as Joshua sent them away and blessed them. He said to them, go back to your homes with the great wealth you have taken from your enemies. Because remember, starting out, all right, the Lord said not to do this, don't do that, so on and so forth. If you take any treasures, take these certain things and bring them into my treasury, not for yourselves. And then there was, battles not too far after that. All right, I believe it might have been, the battle right after that. He says, now you can take this and take that. So you have to understand, all these years of conquering all these cities and all these territories, there's a lot of treasure things and other items, all right, of wealth, okay, that you're able to take, cattle and things of that nature, whatever, ox, sheep, whatever they had that you're able to take. So you have to think about this is years of these men gathering these things, and now they're able to go back home, and they have stock now, all right. They have stock because they have all these treasures. They got gold, they got silver, they got cattle, they got donkeys, horses, whatever. I don't know what, whatever it may have been that they took, right? So they have all these things and able to go home and divide it amongst themselves, amongst their that particular tribe's, land. See? So even our starting point wasn't, it wasn't, you know, not even base level, all right? Because the starting point of us dwelling in the lands back then in the ancient time, you see how the Lord did. He put us above level as our starting point, all right? So it says, he said to them, go back to your homes with great wealth you have taken from your enemies, the vast herds of livestock, the silver, gold, bronze, and iron, and the large supply of clothing. Share the plunder with your relatives. See? It says, so the men of Reuben, Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh, because mind you, we're talking about the east side of the Jordan, all right? Um, let me see here. Let me see. Give me a second. I'm trying to help you out with a quick. I'm trying to see if I can find something here. As a matter of fact, bear with me real quick. And now I'll go to the KJV. If I go, they won't. Okay. Let's see here. Let's just grab one of these names here. And see if we can okay, let's see if we can grab this. And we use that to go over here and grab the image. Yep, there we go. That's exactly what I wanted. Alright, so you see what we're looking at here. Alright. See Reuben, Gad, East Manasseh. Alright, east side of the Jordan, because you see that's the Dead Sea. Alright. And then the dark blue line. That there, dark blue line, that's the Jordan River. Alright. That's the Jordan River. Okay. Oh, here it says right there. I didn't even see it. The River Jordan, see? That's the Jordan River. Alright. So we're dealing with these guys over here. Alright. Reuben, Gad, and Manasseh, east side of the Jordan River. Alright, so you can see that. Okay. So let me back up. And let me jump back down. I gotta find a verse that we left off on. Bear with me. Okay, I think it was around there, 8 or 9. So let me go back to it here. Yep. Share the planet with your relatives. So it says, so the men of Reuben, Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh left the rest of Israel at Shiloh in the land of Canaan. They started the journey. So now, they're breaking off and separate because mind you, they have to go over the Jordan. Okay. So it says, so the men of Reuben, Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh left the rest of Israel at Shiloh in the land of Canaan. They started the journey back to their own land of Gilead, the territory that belonged to them, according to Yahweh's command through Moses. Okay. Now here's what this account here gets interesting. All right. So it says the eastern tribes built an altar. Right. So chapter 22, verse 10. But while they were still in Canaan, and when they came to a place called Geliloth, all right, Geliloth, near the Jordan River, the men of Reuben, Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh stopped to build a large, imposing altar. And just out of curiosity, I'm gonna see if we can find Geliloth by chance. No, not Gilgal. I see Geliloth. Looks like it's next, or not next to, but close to the Dead Sea. If that map is right, just bear with me. Yeah, they keep moving up Gilgal. Gilgal. So let's grab this then. Now, I'm not saying that this is exactly where Geliloth is, because you can see right there, Dead Sea. You can see the A and C right there. All right. And that, once again, that dark blue line is the Jordan River. So supposedly, we'll say, because we can't say for sure, supposedly that's the Geliloth right there that we're reading about. Just kind of trying to give you, a tad bit of a visual there. Okay, let's see what this is. Let's just pull it up. Okay, so there might be another map dealing with something else. So it doesn't really show you too much. I mean, just for sake of what we're talking about, we just go with that right there. So you see Geliloth right there. And it is on the west of the Jordan. So let's go back. So it says, but while they were still in Canaan, and when they came to a place called Geliloth, near the Jordan River, the men of Reuben, Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh stopped to build a large and imposing altar. The rest of Israel heard that the people of Reuben, Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh had built an altar at Geliloth at the edge of the land of Canaan on the west side of the Jordan River. All right, so this is where the baseline of the account, this pretty much account here starts, right? So it says, so the whole community of Israel gathered at Shiloh and prepared to go to war against them. All right, it says first, however, they sent a delegation led by Phinehas, son of Eleazar, the priest, to talk with the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh. Yeah, because they heard about this altar that was built, and immediately, the spirit jumped on them, or well, I don't want to say the spirit jumped on them, but immediately they're thinking like, what are they doing? All right. So instead of acting out of anger and just going to war, which they would have in turn been in the wrong, as we read through the account, you understand that. But that's what would have happened. They would have gotten their land, all these years of fighting with each other to get each other's lands, all right, about war, and then they turn in war against one another, all right. So they sent, a delegation, all right. They sent this, pretty much a little caravan here, all right, of men. First, however, they sent a delegation led by Phinehas, son of Eleazar, the priest, to talk with the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and the Had tribe of Manasseh. In this delegation were 10 leaders of Israel, one from each of the 10 tribes. All right. It says, and each the head of his family within the clans of Israel. All right. So one from each of the 10 tribes, and each the head of his family within the clans of Israel. So, the basically the leaders, all right? So verse 15 says, when they arrived in the land of Gilead, they said to the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and the Had tribe of Manasseh, the whole community of the Lord Yahweh demands to know why you are betraying the God of Israel. Okay? That's the question. How could you turn away from Yahweh and build an altar for yourselves in rebellion against them? Now, this is what they thought, because they heard about the altar and it was like, wait a minute, we got to go check this thing out. Rightfully so, right? So their concern is, why did you build this altar? All right. Let's read it again. The whole community of the Lord Yahweh demands to know why you are betraying the power of Israel. How could you turn away from Yahweh and build an altar for yourselves in rebellion against them? Was our sin at Peor not enough? To this day, we are not fully cleansed of it, even after the plague that struck the entire community of the Lord Yahweh. Right? And if you can, we can actually cross-reference that to know what he's talking about. Wait, do we? Okay, there we go. All right. Here you go, right there. You see it, Numbers. All right, Numbers 25:3. In this way, Israel joined in the worship of Baal Peor, causing Yahweh's anger to blaze against his people. All right, the Lord Yahweh issued the following command to Moses: seize all the ringleaders and execute them before Yahweh in broad daylight, so his fierce anger will turn away from the people of Israel. So Moses ordered Israel's judges: each of you must put to death the men under your authority who have joined in worshiping Baal Peor. Okay. And if we just grab this right here at the top of that verse 3, it says, while the Israelites were camped at Acacia Grove, some of the men defiled themselves by having sexual relations with local Moabite women. These women invited them to attend sacrifices to their gods, so the Israelites feasted with them and worshiped the gods of Moab. And that's what made the men go off. All right. See, now, someone who lack understanding, or following somebody's wrong doctrine about the women, women of other nations, that's not the problem, because you can go into the example of Solomon. Solomon had 1,000 women, okay, and some of those women were women of the heathen nation. So the sin was not that Solomon had multiple women or women of heathen nations as well. The sin was that when he took, the Israelites, by default, those Israelite women, they should know better. They worship the Lord. But when it comes to those heathen women, all right, they're supposed to put away their gods, all right, and serve the Lord Yahweh. And it doesn't make them an Israelite. Doesn't mean that one day they're going to get salvation. But no, if you serve the Lord, you can't have some woman, walking around your house, all right, talking about hail Buddha or some crazy mess like that, all right. She has to put that nonsense away and worship the Lord. And that's where Solomon's sin came in at, not the women. All right. The sin was that he still allowed those women to worship their gods. And eventually he built groves for them. All right. Places, altars surrounded by trees, little secret places to worship those gods. And then he eventually fell to that. See? So it was never about the women, because even in the law, it tells you about, going to war. And if you find a woman that, you really want her, you take her, and what she mourns for, I think it says that month, you shave her head, pare her nails, and so on and so forth. And afterwards, you can go in unto her, because because she did just lose everything, family, whatever kind of wealth she might have had. All right, might even had children, probably not, but you get the point. All right, so she has a time period of mourning. All right, the Lord was lenient on that, but at the end of that mourning period, hey, she belongs to you now. Well, she belongs to you in the first place, but she really belongs to you once you go in unto her, because sex, is pretty much the marriage. But she wouldn't be like a Israelite wife; she's a lesser wife, which is concubine. See, so yeah, so this is the same, sentiment here. All right, those women. It's not that it's wrong for you to deal with the heathen women, but the problem is you can't have her make you forsake the Lord, okay, and serve her little false god and idol, or you think like, because the scripture say, what's that? I just pulled it up real quick. Exodus 20. I'm thinking about, because there's a couple other ones we can get there where we at it. As a matter of fact, let me get the KJV. All right, so here it is right here. And we're going to jump down and get another one. But here's the point right here that I was making. Right, Exodus 20:2. I am Yahweh thy power, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. All right. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, Yahweh, thy power, am a jealous power, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and show mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. All right. So that's the point right there. Okay. Serve the Lord Yahweh only. Now, when it says, let me see if I can find where it was at. Yeah, before me, when it says, don't get confused by how it's worded here. When it says, thou shalt have no other gods before me. Meaning, okay, so I worship Yahweh, and then I can deal with Buddha. No, it's not meaning that. Don't get confused by the way it is worded, all right? When he says, have no other gods before me, it means him only, okay? So you can't worship, well, of course, that's straightforward. You can't forsake the Lord and worship, the God of these Moabites, like we're talking about in Numbers. And you can't worship the Lord and then worship, which is, since we use him, for example, just say Buddha again, and then go worship Buddha on the side. That doesn't work either, all right? So you're going off, see? So Lord willing, that was, clear. We'll read it again, though, to finalize the point. While the Israelites were camped at Acacia Grove, some of the men defiled themselves by having sexual relations with local Moabite women. These women invited them to attend sacrifices to their gods. And that's what makes an Israelite man go off dealing with the heathen woman. All right, not just dealing with her, okay? So the Israelites feasted with them and worshiped the gods of Moab, okay? So going back to the chapter, make sure we're still ticking. Yep. It says Joshua 22:17 was our sin. So they pulled up recent history that just happened with them. All right, that this was a time period, everything from between being delivered from Egypt, the wilderness, and up to now. All right, finally getting our lands that was promised to us. Okay, so he's bringing up the history, not like to throw it in their face. It's just like, hey man, this just happened. All right, remember this? Remember we went through this, we went through that. All right, you don't want that to come back upon us again. You see. Was our sin at Peor not enough? To this day, we are not fully cleansed of it, even after the plague that struck the entire community of the Lord Yahweh. Now, I didn't get down to that part. I think it was like 21 or 24,000 people. Let me see if I can just find that point real quick. Yep, 24,000. See, but not before 24,000 people had died. All right. So, as a matter of fact, let me read this for you since we're here back here again, right? So it says, we left, I think we read verse 4. So verse 5 says, so Moses ordered Israel's judges, each of you must put to death the men under your authority who have joined in worshiping Baal Peor. Just then, one of the Israelite men brought a Midianite woman into his tent right before the eyes of Moses and all the people, as everyone was weeping at the entrance of the tabernacle. When Phinehas, son of Eleazar and grandson of Aaron the priest, saw this, he jumped up and left the assembly. He took a spear and rushed after the man into his tent, all right, filled with zeal, rightfully so, though. It says Phinehas thrust the spear all the way through the man's body and into the woman's stomach. So the plague against the Israelites was stopped because they were having pretty much a sexual ritual right there. Okay, so he thrust them through with the spear, both of them. Okay, so they died in their ritual, right? It says, but not before 24,000 people had died. All right, so that's the history that he's bringing up. All right, so yep. So verse 18 says, and yet today you are turning away from following the Lord Yahweh. If you rebel against Yahweh today, he will be angry with all of us tomorrow. All right, all of us, not just one of us, all of us. So that's how serious the matter was, because that's the key. And as a matter of fact, because I didn't point that out, but as we just read the numbers, actually no, it was right here. Okay, yeah, see, was our sin at Peor not enough? You see, so and that's why that when you go into certain points in history, all right, it'll say to cut off sin from Israel, because when this one person has done something that maybe is worthy of death, right, and that person is allowed to just continue on and live and be around other Israelites, what is going to happen? That person is going to become a parasite. All right, that one sin is going to become a parasite within that person, and then what happens with parasites? All right, germs or whatever, they spread, and so they're gonna pollute other Israelites, okay, who are doing right, and then it's going to spread throughout Israel. So no, you cut the cancer out of the body, you cut the parasite out, you cleanse it of that germ, get rid of it. See, so that's basically the sentiment there. And yet today you are turning away from following Yahweh. If you rebel against Yahweh today, he will be angry with all of us tomorrow. If you need, and that's the reason why they came. First they set the course to the men to speak about the matter, but they were ready for war. Okay, like wait a minute, this is going to bring wrath down upon us. Okay, so they were ready to cut the whole the whole entire from on the east side off. All right, and war against them and bring them to nothing. Right. But that's how serious it is. All right. If you need the altar, okay, because the land you possess is defiled, then join us in the Lord's land, where the tabernacle of the Lord is situated, and share our land with us. But do not rebel against the Lord Yahweh or against us by building an altar other than the one true altar of the Lord Yahweh, our power. Didn't divine anger fall on the entire community of Israel when Achan, a member of the clan of Zerah, sinned by stealing the things set apart for the Lord Yahweh? He was not he was not the only one who died because of his sin. And that goes back to one of the earlier chapters. Remember we mentioned that the man that took the gold and stuff like that. As a matter of fact, let's just precept it. He hid it under his tent. Okay, right here, Joshua 7. But Israel violated the instructions. See, Israel violated. All right. About the things set apart for the Lord Yahweh. A man, but that goes to show you, all right, why. And I speak about this, from time to time, where in particular I've used that example of Daniel, all right, but it's still across the board. You hear men say that we sin, all right, we sin because the Lord deals with nations, all right. So if Israel, maybe this tribe, this whole tribe, or just a couple people, whatever the case may be, it's still going to be an overall thing. Israel sin, you see? A man named Achan has stolen some of these dedicated things, so Yahweh was very angry with the Israelites. Achan was the son of Carmi, a descendant of Zimri, son of Zerah, of the tribe of Judah. Chased the Israelites from the town gate as far as the quarries, and they killed about 36 who were retreating down the slope. The Israelites were paralyzed with fear at this time. And really, I want to get down, because you can read all of that. But yeah, I guess we'll read through it. It says, who were retreating down the slope. The Israelites were paralyzed in fear, and this turn of events and their courage melted away. Every member of Zimri's family was brought forward person by person, and Achan was singled out. Then Joshua and all the Israelites took Achan, the silver, the robe, the bar of gold, his sons, daughters, cattle, donkeys, sheep, goats, tent, and everything he had, and they brought them to the valley of Kor. And if you're not familiar with that count, just go back to Joshua chapter 7. Basically, everything, including his tent that he lived in, was taken and stoned. And then after they stoned everyone, well, except for his wife. His wife is not mentioned, which of course that probably meant that she was probably passed away. And he was probably a single father, because notice his wife is not mentioned. But everybody else of his household, all his belongings, all his substance, and even his tent was stoned, and then it was burned up with fire. All right. So they're bringing out heavy points like, man, look, this is the wrath of the Lord, man. What are y'all doing building this altar? Didn't divine anger fall on the entire community of Israel when Achan, a member of the clan of Zerah, sinned by stealing the things set apart for Yahweh? He was not the only one who died because of his sin. The people of Reuben, Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh answered the heads of the clans of Israel. All right, now we're going to find out why they did this. Yahweh, the mighty one, is the Most High. Yahweh, the mighty one, is the Most High. Excuse me. It says, Yahweh, the mighty one, is, all right, the highest, God the highest. He knows the truth, and may Israel know it too. We have not built the altar in treacherous rebellion against the Lord Yahweh. If we have done so, do not spare our lives this day. If we have built an altar for ourselves to turn away from Yahweh, or to offer burnt offerings, or grain offerings, or peace offerings, may Yahweh himself punish us. Okay? So they're pleading that cause now, and letting it be known like what's going on, what the matter is here. The truth is, we have built this altar because we fear that in the future your descendants will say to ours. And real quick to make the point, all right, up here where they said it, all right, it says Yahweh the mighty one is the highest. He's God the highest. He knows the truth. Okay, because you have their particular, what the answer they're going to give versus what the men over here think. But as long as the Lord knows the truth, that's what matters the most, you see. And it's beautiful that they said that, right? Because the Lord knows the truth, right? So it says, let me see. I think we read 23. Yeah, 24. Matter of fact, let's just read 23 again. If we have built an altar for ourselves to turn away from Yahweh, or to offer burnt offerings or grain offerings or peace offerings, may Yahweh himself punish us. All right, here it is. It says, the truth is, we have built this altar because we fear that in the future your descendants will say to ours, what right do you have to worship Yahweh, the power of Israel? Okay. And so that's what they said that we built this altar for. Okay. But they're going to further expound on it, because that's a straightforward answer, but we need more. All right. So they're going to really break it down. All right. It says, we fear that in the future your descendants will say to ours, what right do you have to worship Yahweh, the power of Israel? All right, because remember, those are they're separated from the Jordan River, or by the Jordan River, I should say, the east side and the west side. All right, majority of everybody was on the west side. Okay, where the real, the original place of worship is, right? And so they're on the other side of the Jordan, and they're saying that, hey, down the line, all right, we may have descendants, and you're gonna have descendants. They don't know each other. We know each other, but we're living miles and miles apart from one another. Those children and grandchildren, whoever, they're not gonna know who each other are. We know each other. So when they try to come to worship, they be like, whoa, what the hell is this? Who are you people? I've never seen you before. Okay, so that's what they were thinking about, right? The truth is, we have built, which neither party would have been in the wrong, all right? Because if you've never seen these people and you just coming allowed in the worship, you're tripping. Like, hold on, let's check them. Like, what's going on here? But then on the other side, on the other hand, right, you have those that are coming to worship because it's their right to do so, all right. But that's what this mutual understanding is important here, okay? The truth is, we have built this altar because we fear that in the future your descendants will say to ours, what right do you have to worship Yahweh, the power of Israel? Yahweh has placed the Jordan River as a barrier between our people and between our people and you people of Reuben and Gad. You have no claim to Yahweh. So your descendants may prevent our descendants from worshiping the Lord Yahweh. You see? So that Jordan River, separating the land masses, right, that was all given to them, but their descendants, further down the line, they're saying that, hey, your descendants may say that the Lord separated y'all by the Jordan River because he ain't dealing with you. Basically kind of say it straight, all right? The reason why he separated you by the Jordan River because he ain't dealing with y'all. Okay, I mean, that's not true. Okay. So we decided to build the altar not for burnt offerings or sacrifices, but as a memorial. You see? It will remind our descendants and your descendants that we too have the right to worship Yahweh at his sanctuary with our burnt offerings, sacrifices, and peace offerings. Then your descendants will not be able to say to ours, you have no claim to the Lord Yahweh. If they say this, our descendants can reply, look at this copy of Yahweh's altar that our ancestors made. It is not for burnt offerings or sacrifices. It is a reminder of the relationship both of us have with the Lord Yahweh. So the altar was simply for a memorial. They weren't actually going to use it for any sacrifices or anything like that. It was simply a replica of the actual one as a reminder and a mutual understanding. And that's the agreement that they're coming to. All right. So it says, 29 says, far be it from us to rebel against the Lord Yahweh or turn away from him by building our town. I'm sorry, our town. Hold on, let me read again. Being our town. Far be it from us to rebel against Yahweh or to turn away from him by building our own altar for burnt offerings, grain offerings, or sacrifices. Excuse me. only, only the altar of the Lord Yahweh, our power, that stands in front of the tabernacle may be used for that purpose. You see? And remember, because, you can go back to that in the book of Exodus. You had the mobile, the mobile tabernacle, because we were moving, right, in the wilderness. So, everything was pretty much mobile. We would stop for however long. So we would set everything up. And then we were on the move. We would take everything down. All right. And, each tribe had the set thing that they were allotted to, deal with and carry and so on and so forth. They had their portion because everybody had their portion, right? In the work, which is beautiful because when you side note real quick, bear with me, which is beautiful, but when you think about the exile or with the return from the exile, right? Every tribe was given, their families and stuff like that was given a certain thing to work on. This person's gonna work on the fish gate, you're gonna work on that wall, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that, all right? So just like with the old tabernacle, with Moses in the wilderness, you have everybody who gave what they can give. As a matter of fact, they gave so much, Moses had to say, "Hey, chill out." Too much. We got enough, right? We can't. I don't know what to do with all this stuff. Okay, but everybody had their portion of what they want to do, what they want to give, what they want to build, and what they want to carry. All right, and of course the priests carried the ark, right? So just kind of side note because it's the scriptures say there's nothing new under the sun. All right, so everybody had a job then. It was no different, right? With the return from exile. Okay, everybody had a certain thing to do according to the Lord's things. But let's get back on point. Only the altar of Yahweh, our power, that stands in front of the tabernacle may be used for that purpose. When Phinehas, the priest, and the leaders of the community, the heads of the clans of Israel, heard this from the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh, they were satisfied because now they have a mutual understanding. Like, okay, these boys ain't tripping. Okay, we understand, we get it. All right. So it's it's about a memorial, and our descendants also having the understanding because we know each other, but our descendants are not going to know one another. All right, or they'll come to, or they'll say like you read in the scriptures, right? The Lord separated us by the Jordan River because he ain't dealing with you, so on and so forth. So we have a understanding. So this thing is going to be a memorial. So no one in the future times to come is going to be able to, to offset you from dealing. All right. Because this altar here is a reminder that, oh, hey, we're the Lord's people too. All right. We have a right to the actual altar too, and so on and so forth. Okay. For sacrifices, offerings, or whatever the case may be, we're one and the same. Phinehas, son of Eleazar, the priest, replied to them, today we know Yahweh is among us, because you have not committed this treachery against Yahweh as we thought. Instead, you have rescued Israel from being destroyed by the hand of Yahweh. You see? Because now they have an understanding. Now they're not going to go to war with one another, okay? Because the men came down to find out, like, if they bugging out, we gonna wig out, okay? But they came to a mutual understanding to finding out what the matter was, instead of just burning hot with their anger and just warring against their brothers, right? Then Phinehas, son of Eleazar, the priest, and the other leaders left the tribes of Reuben and Gad and Gilead and returned to the land of Canaan to tell the Israelites what had happened. And all the Israelites were satisfied and praised the Most High and spoke no more of war against Reuben and Gad. See, the people of Reuben and Gad named the altar Witness, for they said, it is a witness between us and them that Yahweh is our power too. And I want to go back to the KJV to see what it says here. Right here. All right. And the thing pleased the children of Israel, and the children of Israel blessed the Most High, and did not intend to go up against them in battle to destroy the land wherein the children of Reuben and Gad dwelt. And the children of Reuben and the children of Gad called the altar Ed. All right, for it shall be a witness between us that Yahweh is the highest, is God the highest. Okay, I'm gonna have to click this to see what we can find. Which it says it right there. All right, Kaya. Yeah, so it's not gonna give it because it's for, because that word is Kaya is for four, and there's nothing there for Ed, but it tells us what it says. For it shall be a witness between us and Yahweh, is the highest. All right, so that's pretty much the end of Joshua chapter 22. Okay, just a small you know, um, I guess you could say a small conflict between the tribes east and the west of the Jordan. All right, centered around this altar that was built. All right, but there was a mutual understanding to be had there, and they both received the understanding. So, all right, that's the end of Joshua chapter 22. Lord willing, you will edify to next thing. I'm going to say shalom, and well, we got what, 2 more chapters, so we're almost done. All right, shalom.